Welcome to the special event marking the 50th anniversary of the Pride Center of the Capital Region. Hi, I'm Ken Screven. And there was a time I remember when I first moved to Albany in 1976, there was a big lambda that was painted outside this building to let everybody know this was a place for gay people. In fact, it was called the Gay Community Center of the Capital District. And I actually lived next door for a period of time. And I got to know a few of the seminal people who were important to this community center, the late Ernie Ray and the late Joe Norton. The Pride Center was the first openly gay community center in America after the bombast of Stonewall.
I'm Ashley Hopkins Benton, a senior historian with the New York State Museum for the Pride Center of the Capital Region's 50th Anniversary Oral History Project.
So I thought we would start at the very beginning, and I was hoping you could tell me a little bit about how you first became involved at the Pride Center and what brought you in.
Well, it was 1970, I believe, and we got a visitor from the someone who was involved with the uprising, Stonewall uprising in New York City. We had a drag queen. That's what she called herself, not a trans person, but a drag queen. And she told us about what had happened. We were having some of the same issues in this area with bars. The police would beat us up on a regular basis walking home from the bars. So there were real issues here as well. We started the Gay Community Center, then it became the Gay and Lesbian Community Center, and eventually the Pride Center, as it became more inclusive over the years. It just came out of that movement in New York City that started everything when they rebelled against the treatment at the Stonewall Inn, and it reverberated nationally and internationally. So that's what we decided to organize, and then we decided to start the Pride Center, and a bunch of us got together and decided to and help that happen.
You talked a little bit about the first location, so can you talk about how it was first organized and who was involved?
Sure, there were, 12, 14 of us, 15 of us that decided to open up a Pride, community center. And we wanted to hand out leaflets and just be a drop-in center, coffee house, whatever. Just a place to get together and meet. It worked very well. It was a great idea, a great concept. We were believe the first to have the Gay Community Center in this region. It was, in the beginning, it was the Washington Park Free Clinic, and somebody owned it. I can't remember. I think he was a psychiatrist, I'm not sure. He wanted to sell the building. So he knew Joe Norton, and he offered to Joe before he put it on the market. He said he would sell it to us. Anyway, so we bought it.
I think my first introduction to the Pride Center was probably attending some sort of social event or performance or something more than 20 years ago, probably more than 25 years ago. And I became familiar with it, and I immediately signed up to get their monthly newsletter Community, which was printed at that point in time. And it was a lifeline.
I was like a ship lost at sea, and I knew it was time to come out and really come out. I read about the Gay Men's Peer Support Group, which literally, and I'm not overstating this, saved my life. And it took me a while before I finally decided I'm going in, and I climbed the front stoop. That was the equivalent of a flight of steps, 3 more, and made it to the room at the top where we met at that time. I was lucky to come in contact with a gay person, let alone a group of gay men. Mm-hmm. And the group was at an all-time high at that point. It had our ultimate number, and I keep these in my journal, which I've been keeping since 7th grade. And the journals, when I read back about this night, it's hard to believe it ever happened. I mean, they welcomed us right away. I was a little bit early, and right away we started talking. But it suddenly the realization came into my mind that I'm in a group of like-minded gay men.
You talked about working at the coffee shop at the center.
Yes.
How did you get involved in doing that?
Okay. Through the peer support group, somebody came in and said, "Look, the community center coffee shop is open 7 days a week, and we don't have that many people running it, and people are there 2 or 3 nights a week, and they asked if there's anybody there who would like to do it." And I thought about it, and I thought, and I asked about it, and they said you just basically sit there, you answer the phone. If it was something that you weren't comfortable handling, you took their number and had somebody call them back. Mm-hmm. And we had coffee and soda and snacks, and we were just in charge of a minor fee for it, and then just cash out at the end of the night. Yeah. Mm-hmm. People would come in just to hang out and have a cup of coffee and talk. It was almost like a customer service desk too. And it was basically just being a host of a coffee house.
How did it function on a regular basis? What were the meetings like?
Well, it has definitely segued, because I was asked to come back in by Mike Chapman at the time and David Reed, who were doing the group right after the Orlando tragedy. And because of my psych background and everybody being upset, I went for a few weeks. At that particular time, we met every Monday night at 7 o'clock. And we'd go around and you would do your check-in. And you could tell everything. I mean, there are things that I will take to my grave that were said in that room that would rock the world. And there were dark things. I mean, there were people who said, "I'm not going to come back next week because I want to kill myself." And they meant it. And a full 80% of the men there had been married. Everyone that was there would ultimately admit in that 80% that their wives knew that they were gay before they got married. And yet we all know that no matter what happens, it'll never come out. And that was the gift.
And what was it like meeting there at the time? Did you have any interactions with people beyond the group that you were involved in?
Well, I can tell you that those meetings were smoky. They were really smoky. And I think everyone was a little nervous. And so, everyone was smoking and we would sit on the floor and you'd get up into this smoke because it was hovering about halfway down from the ceiling.
Some of the other people that I've talked to who were involved at that time were glad to have the space to meet as a women's group, but felt that the Pride Center was really a men's space. Did you get that vibe?
It felt like that. Yes, it felt like that. But the thing is, when we were there, it was a women's space. We were a bunch of very strong women and personalities. So when we were there, it was a women's space.
I remember the first march that we had there were 5,000 of us, and we couldn't get a permit to march on the streets of Albany. So we had to walk single file down the sidewalks of Albany to the Capitol. When we got there, eventually we were 5,000 strong at least. So it was pretty remarkable. People showed up from all over the state. They were sleeping everywhere, and they took hotel rooms and extra bedrooms or floor spaces if they had sleeping bags. We just put them up everywhere we possibly could. And it was just truly remarkable. I remember that's probably the best dance I ever went to was at the Unitarian Church. They were very supportive of us on Washington Avenue. It was a dance before the march. The energy of that, the spirit of that was so together and so open, and I never experienced anything like that before, and never have since.
They had limited Pride activities, but this was a time when it really got into be a big thing into Washington Park. And there would be like 8 or 10 days of Pride celebrations and events and which led up to the big march. We needed to be for people to know that, we're the Pride Center and we need their support.
So we also talked briefly about your work on the Pride celebration?
I think I was on the Pride Committee for exactly 17 or 18 years at least. We used to meet really early. We would meet in like October for the next June.
Wow.
And they would invite anybody to join it. It wasn't like exclusive. And people would come. In the first meeting, they would be like, okay, this is what we did last year. Some of them we'll probably keep. Some of them we'll probably discard because they weren't too popular.
Mhm.
But and then the next meeting might be something like, if you have an idea of an event you want to do, just do some research on it. Let us know what you'd like to do. And then the next meeting, like in November, people would come in and say, oh, I want to do like a drag show, or I want to do like a trans lunch, or I want to do a bisexual brunch, or whatever, they would do it. So we could do more bowling or.
Were there specific events that you helped plan that you're very proud of?
Yeah, well, there's one in particular, Carmi Hope and I think it was actually Carmi's idea. Carmi said we should do a cabaret for kids, a drag cabaret for kids. And Carmi just set up her equipment, and some parents brought their kids in, and we would sing to them and tell them stories and just read something to them. Pat Whalen from the museum used to be on the Pride Committee too. Mm. He said he would love to have that, like to see if he could do that at the museum. So we've been doing it there for like the last 10 or 11 years. Mm. I have to tell you, one of my favorite stories is I was sitting there, getting ready to sing, and this little kid walked in and went, ah, and walked and ran. They had to coax him back in. It was great. I have a picture of a kid who came to the first one, and 10 years later I had a picture with him taken at Pride, and he still remembered the first one, and it was so cool. Pride is very important. I mean, people think it's just getting out there and parading and having a party and everything. Visibility, and that's because of the center, because they do it every year, and there's so many people at every year. And I think it's really opened us up to be, a vibrant part of the community.
During Pride, one year, because they have different events. Like Pride isn't just in the park. Pride is like a whole month where they have like bowling and, miniature golf or whatever anybody else. They just pick tons of different events to do in the month. And the bars get in on it and they do different things. And there might have been another movie showing, I think, that might have been here, or a speaker. We actually had a Native American speaker who talked about Two-Spirit, because that's a kind of another little subset of our community, and that might have been it. But
what do you think is of the Pride celebration? Why is it important to grow it? And I mean, other than fundraising, obviously.
Well, the Pride celebration started off is we demand our rights. It's not just a celebration. It's also a reminder that we're here. And I mean, I don't know if it's the only one of the few segments of society that you actually have to come out to tell people who you are. All right. That's wrong. We shouldn't have to tell somebody, oh, you came out, we're having a party. It's like, no, especially as rights start to get rolled back and chipped away. And yes, we've had a couple great wins in the Supreme Court this year. It's hearts and minds. You can't legislate the hearts and minds. It's still a lot to do. We still need all of our corporate sponsors to stand with us. We still need all of our straight allies to stand with us. We still need, as a community, to stand together.
The next thing that occurred was changing the name. It was the Gay and Lesbian Community Center, Capital Region Gay and Lesbian Community Center. But now we were starting to get government grants, and we were starting to develop programs, and felt like we were more than just a community center. And so made the decision, after a lot of discussion, to change the name of the organization to the Pride Center of the Capital Region.
So we ended up starting the Business Alliance. which was all businesses that either were gay or lesbian owned, transgender owned, or they were friendly to all of our people. And so we made sure that we had listings, we had events that people could come and mix and exchange business cards and things like that. We'd never had anything like that before. And that was so important to do all that. I had a Christmas party every year at my home. It was totally dedicated to the Pride Center. The last year we did the party here, we raised $10,000 at a Christmas party. And we raised a lot of money, and people talked about those parties all the time, because those of us who have been fortunate and have had good jobs and have had good careers, you support and help other people and do the best you can for people, because you could be down that road too. So I've always felt that it was up to me to give my time, my talent, my treasures as much as I can to help other people out. And doing so through the Pride Center to me was very important and very enriching, and I wish more people felt that way. Mm.
And so not only do they do this great programming and provide that sort of service, but they would also, for people that were working in the community, provide a place for you to interface and to bounce ideas off. But yeah, it was always a wonderful hub and calendar for all the things that I've been involved with. Everyone who was involved wanted to be involved. Like this is our service to our community, and the Pride Center always helped amplify and focus that, and that's why it was so important.
You've touched on the radio show. Can you talk about how you got involved and what you think the importance of the show is for the community?
I was in the support group, and they wanted me to do do a promotion, which I did. And Sean asked me to come over to the radio show, Sean McLaughlin. So I did this promotion, and we got talking about Kevin on the Wonder Years. The show ends after 2 hours, and he said, "Ray, I want you to stay forever." I was suddenly at the show. So as soon as I had the chance to become executive producer, I thought, I'm going to tighten this up. And we made some changes. My philosophy, my mantra with the show is, there is nothing we will not talk about. We went deep into HIV, AIDS, and we talked about things that no one else did. You won't hear them anywhere else. But they had to pick a name for the show. And they had something, I think we had the exact name someplace. One of them, I'm sure, was Rainbow Radio. And then one of the people, he said, Homo Radio, that's what'll work. Well, it's how many years later, 92 to now, and I think they were right. The guidance counselor at Albany High School wrote me a letter and said, Dr. Ray, you've saved lives as a result of the show. We have the highest rated college radio show in the world. Wow. There are times I sit in teaching, I wonder if anybody's really behind you. Am I really connecting? And then somebody says that, somebody who's highly respected. I realize we have to do this. And I'm very, very proud of that.
He heard me sing. He said, you should come to Capital Pride Singers. So, and so I joined them. I've been doing that for like 25 years now.
Wow.
Yeah, it's Capital Pride Singers. It's one of the only gay and lesbian mixed choruses left in the country. There's only 2 or 3 left list I saw.
Wow.
But I also see a great improvement, in the presence of Interim Voices and the Pride Center. I see them working together on various things. I think there was recently a forum that they worked together, and that I was glad to see. Very much so, and Schenectady Pride was involved also. It's just that I see people at the Pride Parade with their, straight people with their families and kids and wearing yellow rainbow flags, et cetera, that would never have happened when I was a youngster, and so I'm grateful to see that.
Well, we were the first place, I think, where the AIDS Council of Northeast New York met. They organized there. We had the first hotline there, and we had our own phone at the Pride Center too, for counseling. People who wanted to call with questions. What do I do? I'm gay. How do I deal with it? Blah blah blah. Then the AIDS crisis came along. We were the one where they set up. They eventually went on their own because they got so powerful and so strong, got so much grant money. They were able to, go on their own. Again, functioning of the Pride Center, why it was set up the way it was. And that worked very well. The calls we used to get were pretty remarkable. Can I get it from the toilet seat? Can I get it from the air? It eventually helped.
A lot of people began to die. I would say 2/3 of the men that I met when I came to Albany are no longer here. To know that all these fellows that were your buddies are not here. They should be here with me. I started to count. When it got to be 100 people had passed away, I stopped counting. And that was a long time ago that I stopped because I couldn't. Yeah.
Your work in Albany, a part of that was work on the Human Rights Ordinance, and you were integral to that campaign. So can you talk about that work and how you became involved?
Our doing the ordinance in Albany did have a ripple effect around the state, and other communities tried to do the same thing. And over time, it did happen. And over time, we got the statewide law done. SONDA was passed in early 2000s, the State Omnibus Non-Discrimination Act. And so it paved the way for a lot of organizing and political work, and it paved the way for a lot of electoral work. Anyone who was going to run for assembly or senate needed and wanted the support of the community, because they knew we could raise money and we were a solid voting bloc. If I'm sitting on the back of a convertible with a candidate during Pride, that sends a message that this is the candidate you want to vote for.
But on a personal note, how do you feel that the Pride Center has impacted your own life?
Just knowing that it's there and that it provides support, especially to young LGBTQ people. And again, that's really been my main and continuing interest. And the reason is that that's what gives me hope. If I had a Pride Center where I lived or close by when I was a teenager, my life would have been filled with hope. And having hope obviously can make a profound difference in one's life. And so I would say that the Pride Center is a source of continuing hope and optimism.
You had also related to that, touched on the alternative prom. Could you talk about why that's important?
It's incredibly important. I didn't know what to expect. I'm looking at these kids. These kids are so excited. I had to organize and set up more dances than I want to admit in that 20-year stretch. The alternative prom was God's gift to the world. There were no problems. Everybody was happy. I really loved talking to them. So the alternative prom was, it was the golden ticket.
So yeah, we do the prom. The prom is an amazing event. I mean, that's really the heart of all the events that I've ever been part of, even bigger than Pride. The prom is like the kids, and seeing these kids that would never ever get the chance to do what they're doing, and they're all in that room, and there's a DJ, and it's fabulous, and it's just like amazing, the energy to watch that 300 kids.
We had a open mic night on a Friday night, and it was for all of the kids. So we had a house full of kids and their parents. So it started, and kids get up, they wrote songs and sang poems they wrote and what have you. Eventually this young man gets up and he's begins his story. And he was talking that he had discovered who he was, and he was getting very depressed because he didn't know anybody like him. He had one good friend that he confided in, that who he was. And he told his friend that he was considering committing suicide. And his friend said, well, you do know there's a Pride Center here in Albany. Let me take you there. And he said, that night saved my life. I did not know at the time his parents are standing right next to me and almost passed out. And that's when I looked around and realized this center does so much. They do unbelievable work here. Not only for the kids, but for adults too.
Oh, it's been home. I mean, it's been a place to feel comfortable. Not have to worry about what people think of you. I'm being judged. It's been a great deal. It's made a big difference in my life. And I'm involved in the community. I've been a community organizer most of my life. And I became a county legislator here in Rensselaer County for 5 years, a few years ago. And I try to help the community. I used to tell people that I don't help the community to get elected. I get elected so I can better serve the community.
I don't know where I'd be without. I really don't. Like, I really needed what this place afforded me in the beginning. It's like being connected to an organization like this. It grounds me. I might have relapsed. I might not have been able to stay clean. A lot of the gay community, gay, lesbian, trans, non-binary, in our community, our bars are kind of like, community centers too, and it gave me a place where it was safe to just pick people's brains and talk and learn about who I was by figuring out who I wasn't.
I had recently come to Albany from New York City and found my way to the Pride Center because we did a lot of meetings there, a lot of organizing there. It was a place of refuge, as it was for many groups, but allowed a lot of people like myself who were in the process. When I moved to Albany, I wasn't out. It was a place that allowed me to find my community, to get politically active. So the Pride Center is, for many of us, our kind of heart and center and soul to a lot of our activities.
I think it made all the difference to a lot of people. I think there would have been many more suicides if it hadn't existed. There would have been a lot more problems with people's lives. I think it's made all the difference in helping people adjust to the notion of gay people, gay LGBTQ people, and just being part of the community.
I think that gay people contribute greatly to our culture, to our society. We need to have the community center, the Pride Center, maintain and prosper, and that there's strength and there's growth and the different shades of colors of the rainbow flag is different colors, and it's because of the Pride Center, police people, and places like the Pride Center. There's been an impact, and I've seen it in terms of lawmakers, especially the legislators, and I think it has had an impact that has improved the life, not just of gay people, but I love to see these young families with their children waving rainbow flags. I said, yeah, that is progress to me on a major scale, and it would not have happened had it not been for places like the Pride Center.
I think it's a time capsule, but it's also our terrible rocket ship to the future that just came to me. It shows the continuity of the presence of our community. It's something we have too. It's like our Elks Lodge, the very brick and mortar reminder, the presence of our community, and how important and the role we play in our community. And the Pride Center is our home base.
I remember working in the budget division, and one of the budget chiefs, who I liked a lot, he warned me. He said, "I live across the street from the community center." I said, "What community?" "The gay people, watch out." So to have that in your own neighborhood and to see the rainbow flag and to know you can go there.
So we can only hope that the Pride Center continues to provide a positive haven, a presence, a legacy for the queer community of the Capital Region. But it can only happen with your support.
Thank you for being a part of this wonderful and diverse community. And thank you for supporting the Pride Center of the Capital Region.